The grind is dead, and creatives will inherit the future. The whole hustle culture is a relic of a dying economy, and in the future, the ones that are just into the hustle and grind are going to suffer because AI is eating the lunch of all technical labor, and robotics are going to be replacing all the physical labor. Now, there's still going to be room for craftsmen, and there's going to be room for the true creatives, and that's what we're here talking about today. Now, you may hear some noise in the background because I'm hanging out in Long Beach, California right now, and today's topic is going to be really great for me to be discussing, and I imagine it will be for you too, because I love to travel. And how do you find that rhythm? How do you stay creative? How do you keep running your business even when things like travel and life are disrupting your flow? So speaking of grind, I used to wear it like a badge of honor. I have a background in my family is blue collar. Work hard mentality was really important. I was in the military, and I used to just smash coffee and work, get up at 5 a.m. and work till 11 p.m., especially when I was running my gym. But when I look back, I've been in business for 18 years. When I look back over my entire career, the things that made the biggest difference in any successful endeavor I've ever had, it was the spaces in between. It was that time I had in between those hustle sprints where I had some space, and that's when the really great ideas came in. That's when I was able to create awesome podcasts. That's when we were able to write great blogs. And that's where the breakthroughs happen, because it happens when you get into the flow state. And flow states used to be something that would occur, and it was unplanned, and it was a surprise, and it was celebrated when it happened. And it doesn't have to be that way, actually. It's something that you can create every single day. It can become predictable. And so we're gonna get into that. I want you to be able to create predictability in hitting those flow states and tapping into your creative ability, because as AI starts automating all of the grind, then all that's going to be left is creative work and interpersonal skills. And so there's a really good book written by one of my mentors and another co-author. The book is called The Last Safe Investment. It's written by Brian Franklin and Michael Ellsberg. And they talked about there's 4 types of work. There's physical labor, there's technical work, and creative work, and interpersonal work. These are the 4. So physical work, this is construction. This is anything that requires the human being to be physically available to do the job. And now what we have are robotics are going to be taking over that. And physical work is usually the lowest paid job out there. And with the exception of professional athletes or professional musicians, and musicians are both, physical, technical, and creative. But the physical labor is going to be replaced by robotics in the next few years. Technical work, probably the first thing to go. It's going right now. Accounting, programming, all of these types of skills. And then creative work it's writing. It's doing what I'm doing right now. It's podcasting. It's creating videos. It's solving problems. It can be applied to creating new technology. And so creative work, those are your ideas. That's something that AI is not replacing anytime soon. And then interpersonal work, that's relationships, that's sales, that's leading a team. And so the first 2, the physical labor, the physical work, the technical work, they're going to be replaced faster. Now, that doesn't mean that if you love to build tables or love to build homes, I think that in the future, when robots are doing a lot of things, the craftsman who comes in and creates something very really nice and puts a lot of heart into it, I think that a lot of wealthy people are going to be the ones that want to purchase those products. They don't want the IKEA. They don't want the Amazon shelving system in their house. They're going to pay someone to do that. So it's not like it's totally going away. It's not like we have this sad future that's all going to be taken from us. But I want to encourage you that if you watch my videos, if you listen to the podcast, if you read the blog, you're more than likely someone who is interested in becoming more of a digital creator, a coach, which would be interpersonal skills, or a better entrepreneur. And so these are all things that are where you really need to harness that creative ability and that interpersonal skill. But here's the thing: is like most creatives right now, like I've been in this most of my career. I've bounced back and forth, and getting stuck, drowning in admin and tech and the hustle and the mentality of the hustle. And what I found is, if we can minimize how much time we spend in tech and admin, we can maximize how much time we spend in creativity, we're much happier, and we tend to be much more successful financially. And so something I've been playing around with a lot lately is I start my work off with a creative hour. And when I do my creative hour, it actually causes me to be more productive all throughout the day. And that productivity I have a greater sense of purpose with that productivity. And so what can happen oftentimes is we did something creative that allowed us to start our business. And then we get into, the business begins to grow, and then we end up just waking up and having to check our email and get into the tasks and all that. And by the end of the day, you didn't do anything creative, or maybe you saved the creative for later in the day and you spent all day draining your tank with being quote unquote productive, and then it's just not there anymore. And that's why most people don't get into that flow state. They don't get into that creative space where they can have those realizations, is because they spend so much of their time just trying to keep up with whatever business that they have going on. And business growth doesn't happen from being productive. It happens from being creative. And so one of the most popular posts that anyone can put online is like, this is my morning routine. I mean, how many influencers have you seen out there that put out their morning routine and people love it? I mean, you probably love seeing it too. By the way, at the end of this, I'm going to share with you my daily routine, which includes my morning routine. But it's not really a routine. I want to encourage you to become, to create a rhythm, because routine will kill your creativity. Rhythm is what you're really looking for. And rhythm is forgiving. I bounce around time zones, and my meetings stay the same time, but I'm a 2-hour difference or 3-hour difference. And so because I am not tied to a routine and I'm more focused on being in rhythm, then I'm able to slide and glide into that rhythm no matter where I'm at or whatever disruption I may have. A lot of my friends have kids. I don't. But the kids regularly disrupt the routine. And if you're too attached to routine as a thing that makes you feel okay, because routine creates this emotional stability that a lot of people end up relying on. When the routine is disrupted, they become emotionally destabilized, and then they end up having a quote unquote bad day. And so what I did is I created a framework for sliding in and gliding into that rhythm. And I use the word glide because that's something that's used in music. And if we're finding rhythm, we're going to use some music terminology and analogies here. So this is the TAP framework. You've got your tune, your amplify, and your play. These are the three different types of things I do in a given day, I do in a given week, I do in a month, I do in a year. So I have a rhythm that I find myself in, not a routine. I find myself in a rhythm. Now, tuning is aligning your mind, body, and energy, and you're tuning the instrument of your physical body. Like I like to think about it of the body as an instrument. When I'm speaking, I am sending breath and vibration through my body, and I'm creating words, and there's a certain tune that I have. And then the amplification. So the body is really there to tune. You tune your body and you play, right? The body and the mind creates. Now the business is there to amplify, and that's why we have tune, amplify, and play. The amplify piece is the business is the amplifier of your play. It takes your best work and it sends it out on a loudspeaker so everybody can hear. All the technology we're accessing now is leverage. It's leveraging the human mind. It's leveraging the human body. And so think about it like this: is you are the musician, your body is the instrument, and your business is the amp. But most people get it backwards. They grind on their amp, they grind on the business all day, adjusting the knobs, twisting dials, without actually ever playing the music. So I encourage you, stop tweaking the amp and start playing. Easier said than done, and that's why we're here. What I want you to do is tap into that play, and the way that we are able to tap into that play on a daily basis is we actually spend the first part of our day tuning ourselves. And so we tune our body, we tune our mind, and we also tune the business. So there's a tuning phase for the business. It's not just pure amplification. We tune the business and then we're able to use it as an amplifier. So being an entrepreneur for 18 years, the first 5, I acted like I had a job. I actually acted like I had 2 or 3 jobs, and I imagine you know what that's like. I start my business and I actually work more hours. That was how I was the first 5 years, and then over time, I was able to break free from that. And some of it was to deprogram my mind and to realize that the amount of hours I put into the work didn't exactly result in the output or the value. So I'm going to break down what my day looks like right now, hour by hour. And what I want to note is how you run your morning is going to be heavily dictated how you ran the evening before. And so before I get into what happens when I wake up at 6 a.m. with no alarm clock, is the night before, I shut down all screens at 8:30 p.m. and I dim the lights, I read a book, I connect with my wife, and I've eaten several hours before that. I don't eat right before bed. And when I start winding down at 8:30, I am asleep by 9:30. And when I wake up, I feel refreshed. I'm not putting a lot of stimulus in right before bed that's disrupting my sleep. My mind is actually able to go into a dream state. I'm able to defrag. And so when I wake up feeling productive already. I wake up feeling creative. If you're not waking up feeling productive and creative and fired up to go, it's likely because you didn't handle the evening before properly. So just take that into note. There's things like, there were years where I would smoke weed in the evenings. I would get off work and I would smoke weed. And what I found was I would wake up the next morning slow. And it's because my evening routine, even though I wanted to cut loose and because I was working hard all day, because of that, I was smoking, and then it would turn into this loop of I smoke weed, or I watch TV too late, or whatever it is, or I'm scrolling on my phone too late. I'm getting that stimulus, and then I wake up the next morning, I don't feel so good, so then I have to drink coffee and I have to grind my way through, and you end up in this vicious cycle of never feeling creative. And so at some point, you got to say, hey, I'm going to have a solid nighttime routine. And I'm using the word routine, but I'm going to have a really disciplined evening where I say, okay, my routine is I do cut it off at 8:30, and that allows me to wind down. So I want to note that a lot of times when people talk about like, oh, I don't wake up with an alarm clock, and people go, well, I don't know how I could ever do that. Well, this is how it's done. It's really dictated by how the evening before went. So I wake up around 6 a.m. I'm on the West Coast right now, so I'm waking up closer to 5 a.m. I don't have the alarm clock. I tend to wake up before the sun ever comes up, and then I drink my water. I get some electrolytes in my body. I find that if I don't do the electrolytes first thing in the morning versus when I do the electrolytes, and I like to use Salt of the Earth, that's the brand, then when I drink those electrolytes and I get hydrated, all of a sudden things do start firing. I do a little bit of stretching, I do some breath work, and that's when I train. I do that first thing in the day. I find that if I train later in the day and I get in my head with some work later, if I try to work out later in the day and I start off with in my head working, then I actually start to experience like burnout in that day. And so there's different types of people out there. So I'm going to share what's my way is not necessarily the way that's going to work best for you, but I'm somebody who tends to go to my head very easily, so I have to ground. If you're somebody who's really grounded, maybe there's something, maybe your routine and your rhythm is a bit different. But I train, and then I'm eating breakfast, I'm taking a shower at 8:30 a.m., and by 9 a.m., I sit down. At 9 a.m., is when I sit down and I have a committed 1 hour of creative work. This is when I'm writing the blog. This is when I'm shooting a video like this. And the one thing I'll mention as well is when I'm training, when I get up in the morning and I'm going and I'm stretching and I'm training, I'm already starting to get my ideas. And so I used to keep a notepad nearby, but now I keep my phone nearby. And what I do is, by the way, my do not disturb on my phone is on all the time. The only time I take it off do not disturb is if I am expecting an important phone call at a specific time and I take it off for a few minutes, and then when I get on the call, I turn it back on. So I don't have any distractions going on. My email's not open when I'm doing anything other than checking email. My email's only open less than an hour a day. But at 9 a.m. when I sit down to that content creation, I may already had some ideas. I whipped out my phone. I may have taken some voice notes. And so I sit down and I have a dedicated hour to my creative work. That's when I'm going to write. I love using Pomodoro effect. I'll play music for 30 to 60 minutes while I write, and then I take a break. I might do some rope flow or something like that. So I do a full hour, deep work, no distractions. And the thing is I commit to an hour, but I'd say 2 to 3 times a week, I actually feel like I'm in this groove and I give it to myself. And so I may go another 30 minutes, or I may log an entire 2 hours for that creative space. So I'm not sticking to a routine where after an hour I just stop no matter what, even if I'm feeling it. If I'm feeling it, I keep rolling. And so I give myself a little bit of space in the morning to do that. And then when I get done with my creative work, I always transition with some type of physical flow activity. I really like having the rope flow. If you don't know what that is, I'll be posting something on my Instagram Reels where I'm going to walk through that, because it's a really helpful tool to be able to help merge the left and right hemispheres of the brain, which increase creativity, and I'm always optimizing for that. I then move into, so that's I tune in the morning my body and my mind with the exercise and hydration and shower, and then I play. And then after that, I then go into the amplified piece, and that's where I start focusing on the business. I have not checked an email. I have not checked my text messages. I don't know anything that's going on in the business until at least 10, 11 a.m. And then that's when I have my stand-up meeting. I have a business partner where we meet for 15 minutes to an hour, and we check on the tasks that are prioritized for the week. That's when I'll check my email. That's when I clear everything. And so basically we're getting really focused on how am I taking what I'm creating and I'm amplifying that with the business. And so I spend 1 hour doing that. I have my lunch. I walk outside. I'll either do silence or I'll do a podcast or an audio book. A lot of times I have something that I'm consistently listening to. I have a few different podcasts that I listen to every week. And so I might be doing that. I might be an audiobook. A lot of times I feel like I just want to walk in silence and collect my thoughts. And then I have my phone on me. If I get an idea or a creative inspiration, I whip it out and I record. The really cool thing with where technology is right now is voice to text is really accurate. Several years ago, that wasn't the case. Now I can just talk. I do a lot of talking into my phone for notes or talking to AI. And before I was having to type it out. So this has been really groundbreaking for me, and being able to collect more of my ideas and then to come back and organize them later during the amplified time. And so After I go on my walk, I then go back to the business, and this is where I might post some social media content. I'm looking at the things that performed really well the week before. I look at the blog that I posted, and I'll take that as inspiration to post something. And so, and then after, so I'll do that around 2 o'clock. So I've had my lunch, I take my break. And then at 3 p.m., I have a flex block. So 3 p.m. may be when I finish my day. I may be done working at that point. If I feel inspired to create some course content for our school community, I'll do that. If I want to just go eat lunch with some friends or hit the sauna, I'll do that. If I want to continue to write the blog because I feel inspired to do so, I do that. And so I really leave the afternoons open for that flexibility. And so that's pretty much the rest of my day after around 3 o'clock. There's not a lot of plans. It's not a lot of things there to do. I leave myself time to play and flex there. And so, and then even if I am feeling hyper inspired, I usually am shutting it down by 5 p.m. no matter what. There are exceptions to the rule if I'm feeling extra inspired, but that's how I run my day. And it's not very rigid, and it's really based on how I'm feeling. If you noticed, and you can go read the blog, and I have it written out line by line so you can look at it yourself and see if you can use it for you. And so when I'm doing it like that, when I'm running my days with that rhythm, man, everything just flows from day to day. I feel excited every day. The creativity is online. And so if you go to the blog, I've got the link in the description down below. I've got the daily rhythm, like big picture categories of how you might want to do it for yourself. I've got daily, weekly, monthly, and annual rhythm. And so I make sure, I always thrive with travel. If I'm in one spot for more than 3 weeks, I actually start feeling a little bit stagnant because I will start falling into a routine and I'll start losing some type of rhythm. Things are too much the same all the time. And so I monthly find a way to get out of town. I do something novel. It may just go camping. It doesn't always mean spending money on a flight and going to an exotic place. It could just be driving down the road a couple hours and camping. And so I want to leave you with this: is the world is shifting, and because of the way technology is moving right now, it is really calling us forward. I mean, the people who've always been the happiest and got paid the most have been people who are working in interpersonal. You know, they're leaders, they're coaches, or they're creating something. They're spending their days being creative. But it's really going to become more about survival in the future. And so the sooner you can tap into your own rhythm, the sooner you're going to experience your days, day after day, the way you want them to. And you're going to be able to stand out in this world where there's so much noise being generated. Like, there's so many bots out there. And your organic and creative work is going to stand out if you truly are in that rhythm and you are consistently practicing and playing and putting things out. It may not happen in the first week, the second week, the third month, but you really dig in day after day, month after month, and enjoy, like, focus on enjoying yourself and creating something and then putting it out into the world. It's going to come back. So I want to ask you now is, like, what note are you going to play next today?